Hi guys, it's Thursday, February 20, and it's been a month since Donald Trump has returned to the Oval Office. And one thing can be said, I think you probably agree with me, that Trump tries to keep his promises. Another issue is which methods he uses for it and on what terms, and that's what we'll discuss with a journalist and expert on American politics, Nika Burduli.
Thank you for inviting. It's a great pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah. About a week ago, Tulsi Gabbard was appointed as the Director of National Intelligence of the United States. As far as I know, she's a very extravagant person. Could you tell our viewers what she's famous for and why she became the new head of intelligence?
Well, as to why she became the head of this very office, it's not me who you should be asking, probably. It's Donald Trump. It's his appointment. First, I thought it was just because Tulsi was a Trump loyalist, newly turned because prior to his campaign of this cycle, she heavily criticized him for many things, including his handling of Syria, Iran, Russia, and now she hopped on a Trump train, as many others did. And this is why first I thought she got the appointment. Now it can be seen as a real U-turn of American foreign policy in terms of Russia, European affairs. So it's not just appointment because she was loyal, it's because she's there to do policies. I see it as of now. Because Tulsi, she was a Democrat, surely, but before she has never been a traditional Democrat when it came to foreign policy. She has always been to the left, and some would say even very left. She didn't like what neocons usually love, like killing Soleimani and all of that. She was Assad supporter publicly. And what's she gonna do? I think it's more of a symbolic, actual appointment because this way you can show that George Bush and his people, who pretty much were there during the first Trump term, including John Bolton and all the other new conservatives, are not in charge anymore. And those who maybe were in that camp before have now turned their allegiances, and now they are also Trump people.
Yeah. And in this context, how serious is the influence of Trump's inner circle on him? Because we see Tulsi Gabbard who makes sometimes very strange statements. His son, who just a few hours ago posted a tweet with a deep fake of Zelensky dancing kind of Indian woman's dance. Is this influence serious?
I have always said that Trump is determined. Trump policy is always determined by people who are close to him at the very moment. So one day it may be Marco Rubio, second day it may be you, third day it may be me, and whatever we tell him, he probably is going to do that. And it's been said by many of people who were in his inner circle before. I don't think Tulsi really has any influence. I think she's there to carry out the orders. There is Musk, whom you mentioned. Of course, he carries a lot of weight. At least now, I think they're gonna have a fallout, which will be pretty funny to watch. Whether you're a Trump supporter or not, I think it will be funny for a human at the very least. But yes, Trump is always determined by those who are close to him and those who he considers to be cool. Because it's not me. Again, people have been saying that he usually watches Fox News. And all the other TV shows to determine what he can do, whether it is a government shutdown or foreign policy affairs. But the thing about Trump is that he's very unpredictable, not in what he does, but whom he asks what he needs to do. And today we may have Zelensky as a modestly successful comedian, and tomorrow he may once again turn into a hero of democracy and all of those nice things. It just depends on who Trump hears out and whom he considers to be cool.
Yeah. As for these statements and as for comedians and so on and so forth, over the past 2 days, very harsh statements was made about Zelensky, and I will just read some of them. Zelensky is a dictator without elections. Zelensky's approval rating is 4%. If Ukraine wants to participate in negotiations, elections must be held. Regarding Ukraine's participation in negotiations, it was said, "Where have you been for the past 3 years?" And that also that Zelensky played Biden like a flute. Yeah. What did Zelensky done to Trump that we see such behavior and such statements?
Good question. I think so. We all know that there was a deal on the table for Ukraine, giving, let's say, frankly, it's selling out to the U.S. It's becoming sort of U.S. colony, right? Minerals, natural resources, all of this. Seemingly, Ukrainian government did not like this deal. They refused it, and now, at least in the U.S., Trump cannot justify, at least to his supporters and many others for whom Ukraine is not really number one issue why he's doing what he's doing. And since Zelensky is a dictator, why should we support him in the name of democracy? This is what at least it looks like from his perspective. And besides those things about Zelensky have been said by a person who Trump, I think, really likes and who may not actually like Trump, but who has to pretend that he does. It's Tucker Carlson. So yeah, I'd say that let's be frank about this also, right? Ukraine is able to fight, maybe not as good as they want, but they are able to fight largely due to the US support. And there is a saying in Russian language, whoever pays, he or she orders music. And this is what we are dealing with right now. Since Americans are the ones helping Ukraine, they do have a very significant leverage. And unless somebody substitutes Americans, say, let be Europeans, Brazilians, Chinese, it doesn't matter who it is, US can and will have a lot of influence. And what's being done, it's called betrayal of Ukraine by some people. I would agree that it is, sort of, because Ukrainians were promised one thing and now they're given completely another one. But this has been the risk for a long time. So Ukraine is in a pretty tough position right now. I don't know how they will get out of it. Probably there will be some deal signed, which may not really give out so much. It may be a very...
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. But why is he making such a statements for? I mean, like, what he wants to achieve by that?
Well, I think he may actually believe this.
Really, that's Zelensky is the dictator.
I don't know. At least I believe this is what he told by some people who are close to him. Because you can't just tell Trump we should do it. He's gonna ask, okay, why? And then you gotta justify it. You say Zelensky is a dictator. Zelensky stole 300 trillion from the US. He's a dictator. This is why we shake him down for these concessions, or we just abandon him. So Trump is preparing to do this. Or he's just bluffing to show that he's serious. This is the only explanation I can give. Because whether he believes it or not doesn't matter, actually. He's a businessman, he knows how to make deals. This is what he always talks about, and this is true, you can't deny this. If he sees a good deal, Zelensky is going to be a great friend to the American people and to the American nation, and if he doesn't, well, I mean, the deal that's favorable to Trump, that he deems favorable. And if he's not, he is going to be a modestly successful comedian who is now a dictator with 4% approval rating.
Yeah, but why doesn't he make such statements about Putin, about Russia?
What's the point? From Trump's point of view, what's the point? If you want to sit down with Putin, end this war as you promised, maybe not in 24 hours, but still,
yeah, because you want to push Ukraine towards the potential negotiations, but also you have to push Russians to it. Yeah, and to make a deal, and not just make a deal like we are capturing all of Ukraine. Kiev is the second capital of Russia, and wow, it's really good that we achieved peace. We both understood that probably it's unreal. So why don't they push Russians to give something to Ukrainians?
Mm. The answer is very simple because the current administration may think it's not in the interests of the United States. If you want to make a deal, the sad reality is a deal about Ukraine can be made without Ukraine. And with whom? With Russia. If you're making a deal with Russia, there is no reason to anger Russians by calling their president a dictator or a bad guy, which he definitely is. But if we do away with this Wilsonian idealism in foreign policy and go to Kissinger's realism, this is, from this point of view, it's a good thing. It's the right thing to do. You're sitting at the table with Putin. You don't want to make him bad guy because that makes you a bad guy for dealing with him. You say he's a dictator, and I'm now striking a deal with a dictator. It doesn't look good, to be honest.
Yeah, you mentioned national interests of United States. What do you think? How does Trump understand national interests of United States regarding this situation in Ukraine?
Trump understands national interests as a whole very differently than others. So we are used to that all the administrations, be it Democrats or Republicans, were like, U.S. interests, what is it? It's peace, relative peace in the world, it's destroying terrorism and all of those nice things, right? Trump, as he always likes to say, he's a businessman. So he views his national interests as a businessman. For instance, trade war with Canada, China, Mexico, all the other countries, right? He does not look on this trade as a political stuff. He just looks at the finances and he says, okay, we are having a deficit of 100 billion, for instance, we got to fix it. How? It doesn't matter because our national interest is to fix this, so we are not, so the Chinese are not stealing from us. This is how he views it. And since he's a grandmaster of Republican Party, he basically owns the Republican Party. Everybody has a choice. Either they fall in line or say, yes, Mr. Trump is right, this is now our national interest. This is why he has virtually no significant position within his party. Those who were opposed to him were primaried, they're now out of office, and if they're lucky, they're sitting on CNN.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you want to add something?
No, I think.
Yeah, as for people around him, him and his vice president, JD Vance, have made many controversial statements and announcements. And I would like to start with JD Vance's speech at the Munich Security Conference. Have you expected such a speech?
I did not. So we all know that was on mind. This is what's on mind, okay, but as Hillary Clinton has said, you have a public position, you have a private position. And it turns out that private position has become a public one. It wasn't really a bad speech from American point of view. Europeans, of course, didn't like it, and they had all the rights. You can't have a guy who is a vice president to a person who denied the election results and encouraged his supporters to storm the Capitol building. You can't have this guy lecturing you about democracy and free speech. It's not really cool. But on the other hand, I think JD Vance did a great thing by really making European leaders think that this dependency on the US when it comes to security is really a bad thing. Because one day there is Biden and, second day there's Trump. And what you gonna do? This is what French President de Gaulle has been saying since 60s. We can't be dependent on America. We gotta have our own security. He was right on that one. So in this regard, I think this speech was good. But it was unexpected. I really thought that whatever Trump would do, he would do it slowly. So it would not be like this on day one. It's been a month, and they've sort of abolished USAID, fired many attorneys from the Justice Department, all the other stuff that they said they would do. But many, including myself, either didn't believe that they really would, or at least thought that it would take a long, long time, at least some months or maybe years. And by midterms, when they lose Congress, inevitably they will lose Congress, it would be over. Well, this does not seem the case as of now.
Yeah, and do you think that this speech marks the beginning of a new era in EU-American relations?
No, not really. At least now. Let's be frank on this one. We gotta wait 4 years and see what happens. Because if a Republican Party returns to normalcy, what it has been before Trump, like this Mitt Romney, George Bush type of Republicans, or if Democrats win the White House, it'd probably be business as usual, just as it was 1 year ago. But the good thing is that Europeans now will probably, I hope they will really think that US is a good partner, but you can't really be dependent on them because they're not as reliable as they always were. This is what I hope they will think, and not only think, but also do something about this.
And what about doing? Will they do something? What do you think?
Well, this is a good question.
Yeah.
If I were to bet my money on it, I would say they would not. This indecisiveness of European politicians, it has been around here for such a long time. It's a disaster. It's a disaster for Europe, first of all. But I don't see who will take the charge. Macron, well, his term finishes in 2 years, maybe less. Keir Starmer, his approval rating may actually be 4%, just as Trump says. Well, at least it's
probably the next chancellor of Germany.
Well, let's see if he's Merkel too. I doubt that. EU has changed a lot, and besides, you always got some guys there who won't fall in line with others. This is Hungary. This was Poland. Now they're also on the other side. This is Slovakia with Fico, and who knows? There may appear some others because in Germany also AfD is on the rise, and you can't be sure they're not going to be representing a quite significant force one day, maybe much more significant than we care to think.
Okay.
But even if everything was good, I just don't see the leader in European politicians, and this is what saddens me. But this is how it actually is. There is nobody who can take the charge. There is nobody who will be followed and who can pressure someone if it's needed. Nobody.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you. Yeah. Very interesting points of view. If it's allowed, I'd like to share my personal feelings. Because when I was listening to JD Vance during the Munich Security Conference, the image of Putin in 2007 came to my mind. Because when in the same city, at the same platform, he smashed Europeans for their policy. And many researchers say that that was the key point when EU-Russia relations and NATO-Russia relations have changed. Didn't you have such flashbacks?
Not really. And the reason is pretty easy. First of all, you may not like Putin, but he's way more respected than JD Vance. Who the hell is JD Vance, to be honest?
Vice President of the United States.
He's just
probably the next president.
Vice President in the US, usually nobody, unless it's Dick Cheney. But once again, when it comes to Putin, you can be sure he's going to be around for many years. And turns out he would be around for at least 18. And who knows for how many he will remain. As for JD Vance, can anyone say for sure that he's going to win the next election? Can even anyone say that he will be running, that he will be a Republican nominee?
So, no, probably not.
As I said, once again, this may be This very well may be the new era of American engagement in the world of the relations between the US and the EU. But we can't be sure about the longevity of current administration. We can't even be sure that current Republican Party will remain in 4 years. So this is why I wouldn't say yet. If this trend goes on and if Trump people start winning elections in Congress, they start winning presidency, well, of course, you can say this, but it does not look like that of now because U.S. It works differently. Why does party of the sitting president lose Congress seats every midterm? Because people don't like the current administration. Usually they don't. And since Trump can't run for another, there is nobody equal to him in the Republican Party, be it in terms of charisma, appeal to the people, approval rates. Nobody. This is why I don't think JD Vance's speech is anything close to Putin's. But this is what I'm saying now. Maybe in a year or two, it will turn out I'm wrong.
Yeah,
who knows?
We'll record another intro in 4 years. Give me the words. Okay. And speaking about the Munich conference, I cannot help but touch upon the deal regarding Ukraine's resources. That deal between United States and Ukraine. The Ukrainian side refused to sign it, stating that the terms were even worse than those imposed on Germany after the World War. Do we know the details of the deal and why did they refuse it?
Well, I'm not really familiar with the details of the deal because I've not seen it. I've only seen what's in the media, just as anybody else. So, well, it's not a good deal. Let's be frank about this one. They're pretty much giving out all the natural resources to the United States, and it doesn't matter who are you robbed by, your enemy or your friend, who also may be seen as an enemy now. I wouldn't sign that deal, of course, but at the same time, you have to think, how do you go on without United States support? I don't know how. And I wouldn't compare this to Germany and Versailles Treaty. It's a bit different.
Words of Ukrainian side, not mine.
Yes, I don't really agree with them on this one. So it's a bit different. First of all, Germany at least was the aggressor. At least formally,
That's the problem because Ukraine is a victim.
Ukraine is a victim, and it may now be a victim of not one but two very big and powerful countries, which is a huge pity. Don't have me wrong, but
so political realism is coming back.
It should have come back. There was no way it wouldn't have come back in one form or another, if you ask me, because everything was going to this. There was a saying that who said it? Fukuyama. Well, he turned out to be wrong, and since we have systems that does not work, it does not work. Let's be honest. There has to be another, and seemingly, this is what it is now. They are big countries who can do whatever the hell they want, and they are small countries who either comply or get obliterated. And as I see right now, it's a sad fate of Ukraine unless somebody, well, Europe, collective Europe, steps up and actually does what it can do and has been doing for a very big chunk of human history.
Okay, and as far as this document is concerned, what Ukraine might get for in return if they sign these documents?
Peace. Which may not be as
guarantees. What do you think about security guarantees?
Who will provide those security guarantees?
They want US to provide security guarantees.
Well, US probably will not.
Okay.
Who's going to do it? This is the question. Poland, okay. But Poland, what is Poland without American security guarantees? And what frankly, anyone, pretty much anyone is without American security guarantees. If there is this system that Trump says to Germans, French, British, whoever, that, okay, you guys go in and we have your back. That's one thing. And I still doubt that any of these countries would go in because they also don't want to take this risk. But if Trump does not support them in this business, who will provide these security guarantees? There is nobody. Who's Russia going to be afraid of? Nobody. This is the problem. This is the problem that Europe has been dependent on the US so long that one day when Americans said, okay, guys, we're out of this, you see what about situations they're in. You know, Zelensky has always said that if Russia wins in Ukraine, they're going to attack Poland. And then Germany and Baltic countries. And I always said, okay, this is not true because Poland and Baltic countries are in NATO. What if there is no NATO? I'm not going to say that Russians will be marching to Warsaw tomorrow. Probably they won't because they don't have the resources as Ukraine has shown. And whatever they had, they spent there. But there will be this threat, for sure. And this is why I said many times, and even though you and I are not hopeful on this one, Europe has to do something itself. It's been a long time it had to.
A few days later, delegations from Russia and the United States met in Riyadh, and this sparked strong criticism from both Ukraine and the European Union. What do we know about the results of these negotiations?
I would say, well, first negotiations are usually a testing ground, so they don't really have any results which are really there, but they may be a good indicative of what we can expect in the future. And there have been reports that Russians offered a very lucrative deal for Trump. At least he's going to view it as a very good deal. Access to Russian oil for American companies, and I believe his American donors will really like that. Common oil drilling operations in the Arctic region, and all of this in exchange for places that Trump has never heard of. Donetsk, Lugansk. Well, can we really expect him to care about these places? You know, I don't like these comparisons with World War II and Chamberlain and Munich because there are American TV series, Space Force, very fun. Where John Malkovich, his character, says not everything in this world is about World War II. And it definitely is not. But Chamberlain has said, why should we fight a war for a country somewhere far away, a country we have never heard of? And Trump is not only offered not to fight a war, he is offered very good deal when it comes to oil. At least the way he sees it, or maybe it actually is a great deal. What's the reason for him to not take this deal? Principles he doesn't believe.
But does Putin want to sign this deal? Does he want to stop the war?
I think that it does not only stop the war, it pretty much gives Putin what he wants. At least these 4 oblasts that he formally annexed, which is quite a result for him after 3 years. He also may get a really politically neutral or politically pro-Russian Ukraine. This is why there is this demand for new elections. So why not? And you also got to take what Putin thinks into account. He may have been a very pragmatic leader 25 years ago when he just came to power. He actually wanted to be some sort of friends with the West back then. But now what he thinks about is what they'll be writing in history books about him.
Yeah.
And he does not want to be seen as a czar who lost the Crimea War. He wants to be seen as собиратель земель русских, as a gatherer of the Russian land. And if he gets that, Why the hell does he care about some oil deep in some iceberg?
Yeah, probably you're right. I don't know what is Putin thinking about, but what do you think? If the war ends and Putin gets that he wants, I mean, these four districts and formerly annexed territories, will Putin attack Ukraine again if security guarantees aren't provided for Ukraine?
That depends. If there is Yanukovych type of president and regime in Ukraine, why would anyone attack? There is no reason. You already have what you want, and maybe Ukraine is
Because he
not
wants to
formally.
gather all old Russian territories, because he has said that Soviet Union's, I mean, like post-Soviet era is the historical Russia, and he
And
wants to gather it.
Russia may have a good deal of influence on this post-Soviet space because it does. Even when it comes to Georgia, Belarus, and others, I'm not going to even mention. Well, why not? Why won't he attack? Two reasons. First of all, I don't believe he can. He can't cope with the Ukrainian army as it is right now, which is understaffed, so to say. They don't have enough people. They don't have enough weapons. They are facing deficit on every front. I'm not going to say Russians are doing well in these terms, but Russia is a country that's way more rich, that has way more resources, but the endless war is not something Putin can actually sell to Russian people. He also needs this, some sort of peace. And besides, as I said, if you have a stable grip on a country, you don't really need to annex it. It's not like the computer game about Hearts of Irons, or what is it called?
Yeah, there are many games, Hearts of Iron, European styles. Yeah,
yes,
we can play
nowadays. Nowadays, the empires are not just territory; it's influence, political influence, economical influence. And if Putin gets Yanukovych 2.0 in Ukraine, there is no reason for him to attack.
Yeah, but what's the real reason of this influence? Probably to annex it after some time.
Maybe one day this new Yanukovych says, well, we are great friends with Russia, there is some threat, or it's much better to be in Russia, let's have a referendum. And we all know what the result's gonna be if it comes to that, if he establishes an actual dictatorship, which we can never rule out. This way, of course, Putin can get most of the Ukraine peacefully. Some of it he got with tanks and bullets. Some part he may or may not get peacefully. This is a scenario that's not really too much likely. So, but it's possible, of course.
Yeah, you also mentioned that you think that Putin will not attack NATO countries, and probably I will agree with you, but only partially. What do you think, for example, about a small provocation in the city of Narva? That's located in Estonia. Probably Putin will send their Russian tanks and just check if NATO can respond. And there's a big probability that NATO countries will not respond because they are afraid of war with Russia, and that can even smash all the NATO. Just a small provocation, because everyone will see that this NATO isn't functioning. So, what do you think about such a small provocation? Is it real
Well,
that Putin will make something like that?
I think he'll face a lot of at pressure. Nobody can pressure him in Russia, but he will sense that it will cause a great discontent among the elites, because the elites never liked the war itself with Ukraine. There is no reason to think they're gonna like it against a NATO country. I think this is what he takes into account, because he better than anyone knows the system of governance he built in Russia. He needs these people. He may be a czar, he may be someone who decides everyone's fate, but he still needs someone whom he can rely on. And I just don't mean Siloviki, not just FSB and the army. He also needs this oligarchic class, big business, even middle business. So this is why I think he will be very careful on this one. But if let's be honest, from a Russian point of view, such a step sounds wonderful. If needed, you can always go back and say, "Oh, my bad, misunderstanding. We're not gonna fight World War III over this, right?" Of course, nobody will. But if this is a successful bluff, imagine this may be one of the best bluffs, best acts in history. So stakes are high, but reward is way higher. I said I don't like comparing everything to World War II, but it very much looks like something Hitler did.
Yeah,
He did so many
with
things,
France.
and nobody dares to stop him because they didn't war. And frankly, with Trump administration, I think there is a good deal of chance that they're not going to be risking a war with Russia for a country that they at least they never heard about and don't care about, of course.
Yeah,
For Estonia,
yeah, so Europe
what is Estonia from America?
so Europe should be prepared for such a provocation because
And once again, we go to the same old song. Europe is not prepared. Europe outsourced its security to Americans. And be it Estonia or Poland or anyone else, of course, they can wage a war with Russia and maybe do it very well. But still, why didn't Russia have an attack? Because they were afraid of the United States response. They were not afraid of Poland or Latvia or Czech Republic, anyone else, America. And if America goes out, well, it's not going to look good for anyone. Not even Russia, I think.
probably. So interesting. While preparing for this interview, I came across many discussions about why Saudi Arabia was chosen as the meeting place. However, in my opinion, that part is relatively clear and understandable. But what I find more interesting is another detail that on the same days when the Russian and American delegations were flying to Saudi Arabia, Zelensky was traveling to the same region, to the United Arab Emirates, to meet with the president of Turkey. What do you think about Turkey's role in this peace negotiation process, and why was it decided to meet with the Turkish president and not someone else?
Well, why did Zelensky meet with
Yeah,
Erdogan or
yeah. Why did Zelensky meet with?
maybe, Turkey is viewed by both Russia and Ukraine as a reliable and good partner. It's not like they're friends, but at the moment their interests align. I maybe it's just me guessing now. To be honest, I can't really say for sure anything. I can't really even make a good guess, but maybe Zelensky was there to somehow ask Erdogan to help him out with Trump. Maybe, but
Is
this
Trump
is just
able?
me guessing.
Is Erdogan able to help with Trump?
Well, Erdogan is a sort of person that Trump, I think, does like. He's this tough guy. Trump likes tough guys because he considers himself to be one. So I'm not saying that Erdogan will come to Trump and say, okay, Zelensky is my friend, so let's help him. No, that's not the way it works. But it's good to have someone at least saying a word in your support, at least one word. It's better than none. Maybe this was the reason, or maybe they were discussing something else. I don't know. I'm not really familiar with these talks.
Okay. So, and what about China, another great player on world chess boards? After all, China claims a leading role in modern order and they even proposed their own plan together with Brazil to end Ukrainian war. What do you think? Could Trump bring China to the negotiation table? Probably they won't.
Chinese, of course, Chinese do. The question is, was it Trump does?
Yeah.
And he's not really fond of China. He has said that many times, and he has shown it many times. He does not like China. I mean, he clearly sees that he needs to work on China or on some things. But I think whenever he has a chance not to do that, he'll gladly use it. And maybe, just maybe, one of the reasons he's been so good with Russia, from a Russian point of view even, is that he wants to leave China out of the game. And if he gives Russians terms that they consider good enough, they will also agree that China should stay out of this. And Trump can claim that the United States is still number one. He personally solved this problem, the biggest war in Europe for how many years? And China, what? What about China? Who cares about China? From a PR point of view, just fantastic.
Okay. And
I do think, I'll just say, I do think that this process can be done without China.
Okay. Do you hear me? It's just lagging a bit.
Yes. All good.
Yeah, we partially touched on this issue of future negotiations and future peace deal. So the last question: how will the war in Ukraine end, and how long will the negotiations take to sign a peace deal?
Once again, it's just guessing. But if I were to guess, and this is what I'm doing right now, it's not going to end the way Ukrainians and all the supporters of Ukraine wanted it to end. And let's be realistic, there was pretty much no way it would end. With the borders of 1991, the complete annihilation of the Putin regime, and this good Russia of the future, as the Russian emigrants said, there was very little chance. There was another option, which is talked now even more than ever before, the Istanbul framework. I don't know whether it could have really been signed, but it was not as bad when you look at it right now. Probably that's also not going to happen because now Ukraine is worse off, and the only reason behind that is the American position. So if I were to sum it up, probably Ukrainians are not de jure admitting that Zaporozhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson are part of Russia. They do have to leave this territory, so they are considered by majority of the world to be occupied by Russia. Ukraine may have to agree to non-NATO status. I do think there's high probability of that. And in the worst case, some of Putin's buddies, maybe Medvedchuk, or maybe they will return the eternal legitimate president Yanukovych. But I don't know. That's a joke. That's more of a joke. We'll go back there and just be a Putin's puppet. And sort of give him Ukraine. This is one scenario. And another is that these negotiations between Washington and Moscow, they break down. And Trump goes the way I thought he would go. So he increases pressure on Russia and says that weak Joe Biden didn't do enough, and he, great President Trump, is doing more than enough, and everything's going to be tremendous. But it does not look like.
And what's that?
Well, nobody knows what's then. Maybe he can pressurize Putin into making a better deal for Ukraine, but I don't see his interest in it right now. If Zelensky gives him all the minerals, all the natural resources Ukraine has, even then, why would he act in favor of Ukraine if he's got anything he wants?
Yeah, but I don't think that
to protect what he has from Russians, surely. But it's once again hard to tell. Uh, Sadly, we can't get into heads of people who really make decisions.
Yeah.
But this is the way I see it, at least. And it saddens me that in 2022, many of us were so hopeful about the outcome. And now we do have to face the sad reality that it really is not about democracy all the time and freedom and all of that. Sometimes it's just about pure interests and financial affairs. This is sad, but this is a good lesson to learn for every country. Yeah. You don't have friends in international relations. You never have friends. This is first thing a professor in university told me, and that's when I knew he was a good professor. You don't have friends. You have just countries who have, at the moment, same interests as you do. But first of all, you got to count on yourself, and I think this is what every state out there has to do, in terms of their capabilities, of course.
Okay, we've been recording for about an hour. I think we've had a very interesting conversation and managed to cover a lot of topics. Nika, would you like to say something to our viewers at last?
Well, I'd say I would first of all thank you and your team for inviting me for doing this. I think it's a very good thing, you're doing. I'd also say that pay attention to what politicians say, because one day they may actually do it.
Yeah. Fortunately
This
or
is
unfortunately?
it depends.
Okay.
But usually it's unfortunately.
Yeah, usually it's unfortunate. So thank you, Nika. Thank you for coming. Dear viewers, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, because it helps to promote it. It was For Me Project and me, Georgi Shidze. Bye.